Hi, this is Rob. Can you hear me okay?
Hi, Rob. We can hear you.
We can hear you,
Great.
Rob.
Okay. Well, how warm is it in Salinas right now? For those
Low
of you who
80s.
are in Salinas.
Low 80s.
Yeah. Nice and warm in King City. I don't know if it got as hot as the forecast said, but it feels nice out.
Well, it's going to be cool next week.
And for anyone who's on the live stream right now, my name is Rob Cullen, board chair. And in advance of starting the meeting at 4 o'clock, I'll make mention now, if anyone would like to submit a public comment or a comment on any of our agenda items or our closed session items, you can do so at any time by emailing comment@svswa.org. Again, that's comment@svswa.org. Do we have interpretation services for this meeting?
No, Rob, we normally don't for the EC.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Just thought I'd check. Thank you.
Well, that new speaker sounds nice.
It does.
Much better than the phone.
So if there's anyone on the live stream listening, we'll be starting in 2 minutes. If you do have any public comment, you can email those to comment@svswa.org. Now I do see there's one phone number on there that is, the name is not identified. Is that Gloria? Does anyone know? I see Chris on the line.
That is Gloria.
Okay. And Gloria, when you get a chance, if you could unmute yourself. Oh, there we go. Now your name's showing up. Okay. I just wanted to confirm that you were on the line. We'll get started in oh, it's 4 o'clock now. So I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. My name is Rob Cullen. I'm board chair. And I see we have all 3 members of the EC board on the call right now. For anyone who just joined us, if you do have any public comment, please email it to comment@svswa.org. And we will go ahead and start with general manager comments, please.
Thank you. I have a few updates to provide today. The first one is just to let you all know we are working directly with the county on updating the litter abatement funding agreement. As you know, the prior agreement that we executed, we never expended those funds because the county ended up having difficulty finding one of the nonprofits that would commit to doing the litter abatement and illegal dumping cleanup. We just weren't set up to do it or interested. So I worked on modifying that contract today, and we'll be bringing that back to the board probably in the next couple of months, because it'll take the county a little while to get it through their legal process and bring it back for final execution. So working on that. The Johnson Canyon Roadway project, the pre-bid meeting was today. Caesar, you're on the line. I don't know if you have any updates you want to provide. Caesar did attend that pre-bid meeting today.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of contractors out there, so it looks like it's getting a lot of interest. Looks like they're shooting the bids are due on the 21st of May, and the county staff thinks that they'll have it to their board for approval by about middle or late June, and then notice to proceed will go out early July. So it's on target to be completed this summer and fall.
Excellent. Thank you, Caesar. Another thing, I was reviewing the district's finance, Monterey Regional Waste Management District's Finance Committee agenda packet, and noticed, as everybody in our industry, they're experiencing a pretty significant revenue drop-off, and are now looking at planning for a 20% reduction in revenue for their budget next year. Currently, our revenues are running around 8 to 10% below where they were last year. I'll let Ray will speak to that a little bit later, but what I'm finding generally in talking with all of my peers across the state is those counties or communities that are primarily hospitality based are being impacted much more significantly because of loss of TOT taxes and the closure of a lot of venues and event things that draw people to those communities, whereas the ag communities, Salinas Valley, and then some of my peers in the Central Valley are seeing more of what we're seeing, a 10% or less drop off in revenue. So we're going to continue to monitor that very closely, begin implementing some austerity actions early on, just to make sure that we're prepared in case things get worse or we start to see further erosion of revenues going into the new fiscal year. But so far, we're seem to be managing okay, and we'll keep the board up to date on that. Also, one other thing that we will be bringing back to the full board, either this month or in June, we've been talking with the food bank, and as you know, we funded a truck to increase their ability to deliver food locally to the community, and that was funded obviously through the Cal Recycle grant. We're looking at the opportunity, or at least the option of considering funding another truck for them. they are desperately in need of additional refrigerated trucks. And so we'll be coming back and asking the board if they would consider allocating some funds from our undesignated capital reserves to fund an additional truck, because the demands on the food bank for distribution are, as you can expect, astronomical now. So we'd be looking at somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 allocation, though we'll likely try to find a slightly used truck instead of a new one, because a new one may take several months to put together. Whereas if we can find a gently used vehicle that's already fully assembled with the refrigeration units attached, that would allow them to benefit from it sooner than later. So we'll be bringing that back for board discussion either this month or early next month. That concludes my opening comments for today.
Okay, thank you. And let's go down down the line for department manager comments. And let's start with you, Caesar. Do you have any other updates for us, Caesar?
Another update, just real quick. Same conversation we've had in the past month. Just our public demand at Johnson and Sun Street is just through the roof. I mean, we're seeing a whole bunch of customers, and I'm sure Salinas and South County have the cleanest yards because everybody's showing up to dispose of their yards right now that they're on shelter in place. But other than that, we're seeing extreme use of the facilities right now by Southpaw. But it's good all the way around. So that's my only comment and observation.
Okay, thank you. And Mandy, anything for us?
No,
there?
not at this
Yeah.
time.
Okay. How about Ray?
No, I'll report out when we talk about the financials.
Okay. And Brian?
Yeah, good afternoon. Related to what Caesar was talking about, we were able to get what they call a waiver of standards from our LEA in order to allow us to exceed our tonnage at Sun Street. So our tonnage limit was 400 tons a day, and we got that extended to 100 tons a day, and we sent in a letter today asking to extend that another month. So we're exceeding our original tonnage. We're within our waiver of standards, they call it. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. And I think I got everyone, but if I missed anyone, speak now, or I'll move on to public comment. Or excuse me, under committee member comments. So let's do committee member comments now, and let's go to Gloria, please. And Gloria, I do see that your phone is on mute, so if you could unmute yourself. There we go.
Am I muted now?
No, now we can hear you.
Unmuted. Yeah, I'm unmuted now.
Yep.
Good afternoon, everyone. Patrick, thank you so much for working with the food bank. I think that's a great idea of that refrigeration truck. So that's my comment. Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, they can sure use it.
Thank you. Chris, got anything for us?
Yeah, I just want to, quickly check in. Obviously, we have a new shelter-in-place order. The governor's announcement today on phase 2 came out, which I think will put some folks back to work. We restricted some stuff around construction, reduced restrictions around construction last week, so I think that's going to increase the tonnage coming in on construction, off of construction sites. The move made today by the governor, hopefully we'll have some word on either by end of day today or tomorrow from Dr. Moreno on what that means for us here locally. So just want to give everybody a heads up on that. One of the things I wanted to put on your radar, Patrick, in response to the food truck request, or for the food bank's request for a truck, we are also looking at the same at the county. So I just want to make sure we don't trip over each other. And the challenge that they're facing right now is a lack of food. So I just know they still have bills due to the city of Salinas from when they rebuilt. And so I just don't know if we both want to do food trucks or if we want to help them offset those costs, those bills that they still owe from their new site. But let's stay in touch about that sooner rather than later, because we at the county, we haven't received much funding from the CDBG, or I'm sorry, from the CARES Act I think the total that we've received outside of Natividad is about $826,000, and we're proposing giving about 725 of that to the food bank for use in buying food and for that food truck need or the refrigerated truck that they need. We have already given them $500,000 out of cannabis funding. So obviously their need continues, as their challenge now, as I understand it, isn't around buying food, but it's getting that food delivered. Their delays have gone from about a week to 6 weeks, and their prices have gone up, I understand, in the neighborhood of 26%. So having those real numbers is impacting their ability to get food into our communities through the channels that they have. So at this point, I think it's more of a food quantity problem due to the supply chain rather than money in the bank. But those are all moving parts that we have to, as local governments, keep our eyes on to support them. But I do agree that we as an end receiver of some of those products could help divert some stuff from the landfill by making sure that we're investing in our local food banks' ability to deliver that to our constituents as quickly as possible. So thank you for your work. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll definitely talk about this as we get closer. I mean, for us programmatically, it makes most sense to give them a truck, because that is where we get our also get our compliance benefits under 1383, is to get them to be able to distribute more food. So yeah, we'll definitely talk as we get closer to making a decision on whether or how to fund some additional support for them.
Chris, I want to make sure I understood part of your comment clearly and correctly. So that 26% increase, so you're saying that that's when the food bank goes out to purchase the food, that they're seeing a 26% increase when they're purchasing. Did I understand that right?
Yeah, because typically what the food bank does, especially locally with agriculture, a lot of the agriculture stuff gets donated, right? When you think about what a company produces, and they typically have 8 to 12% overage, and so they donate that to the food bank. It's a write-off. It's a good mix for them. But I think one of the challenges that I'm understanding from my conversations with folks at the food bank and others who they've been in contact with is that obviously there's a lot of food banks around the country right now competing for that same resource, where typically those overages or, those typical stocks for things that are non-perishables like peanut butter that last a long time are now, it's so much more competitive and grocery stores want them. And so costs for that, it's basic economics, as Rob, costs are going up for them.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense, unfortunately. Okay. All right. And then let's see. Oh, just one quick thing from me is that we will not be going into closed session tonight. We do not have updates on either of those closed session items. So we will not be going into closed session tonight or today. So let's move down to public comment now. And have we had any items come in on public comment?
No public comment.
Okay. Then I see that we have on consideration, we have 1A, 1B, and 1C, which are minutes from the March 19th, April 2nd, and April 22nd meeting. And is there any committee discussion on any of those minutes?
None.
Okay.
I'm good.
None.
Okay. And is there any public comment on any of those items?
No public comment.
Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion to approve items 1A, 1B, and 1C.
So moved.
This is for second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries, and we'll go on to item number 2, which is the March 2020 claims and financial reports, and I will turn it over to Ray Hendricks, please.
Since I don't have a big screen to kind of go over these, so I'm gonna kind of verbally go through a little more detail than I normally do, so bear with me. End of March, we ended up revenues for the month of March at just over 1.7 million. That's about 100,000. Oh, magically, I have numbers on the screen. So for the month of March, we ended revenues about 100,000 below March of the prior year. So part of that is shelter in place. Year to date, we're about 200,000 ahead of where we were last year. We did end last year at just over 23 million, and our budgeted revenue is just under 21 million. So we have quite a nice, fortunate, big bandwidth to get through the next couple of months. Expenditure wise, everything's in line. No real concerns with any of the line items. Bigger concern is just kind of seeing how this affects next year's budget. The board elected not to approve rates, which is understandable, but that puts us in a $350,000 hole revenue wise to the budget. The tonnage is estimated conservatively, so we have some bandwidth. We could absorb a little over 5% shortfall over the prior year in tonnage. Unfortunately, right now everything's running about 7 to 8%. So we'll be kind of cutting back. Obviously, the big thing is we cannot implement the C&D program right off the bat next year. So we'll be putting that on hold and kind of looking at the budget to see what we can put a hold in the next couple of weeks with the management team. And then hopefully everything recovers a little better once everyone's back at work and back out and about. The year over year numbers are a little better than they are right now. And hopefully there isn't a shelter in place 2.0 like I've heard rumors this morning, unfortunately. Be happy to answer any specific questions.
Wow.
Okay, on the sales of materials, and I know sales of materials is a pretty small component of our budget, but I see we're at 57% of budget. How much of that is a China issue versus or a combination of that and some impacts that we're seeing right now related to coronavirus?
Well, the sales issues, we were looking good when I wrote the initial budget, but something changed in January, February. I'm told that commodity prices completely tanked to the point where we don't even go out to bid on our metal anymore. We just have someone come out and pick it up at very low prices. Fortunately, that's not a big part of our budget, but yeah, we're probably gonna end the year about $40,000 short on this year's budget. And if Mandy or Caesar have any more thing they want to add to that, be happy to take their assistance.
Yeah, we're not seeing pay for paper or glass. We never had any kind of payment, so that's actually a money loser. And paper is we're actually paying to recycle paper as well. So those are commodities that we can get paid for, as well as rigid plastic, which I spoke with AMS. They're taking it from us as a courtesy, as one of their biggest customers, but there is no pay involved. That's pretty much they pick up at no cost to us, and we get nothing for it as well, compared to previous years where there was a market for all those commodities.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and it's probably going to stay like that for a while now with commodity prices the way they are. Okay, let's go to committee discussion on this. Gloria, we'll start with you.
I have none.
Okay, Chris.
Okay. We get any anecdotal evidence of resurgence, at least from construction in the last week?
I'll be honest, I haven't really been looking at construction numbers. I've been tracking our total revenue year over year. I mean, we've been holding flat at about down 9%. But Caesar, have you seen any C&D out there?
There's some C&D coming in, not very much. I mean, if we're looking at construction overall, I know there's a big paving job that started on the east side of Salinas that one of the school districts was doing, and we're getting all that asphalt that they're removing this week at Johnson Canyon. But no real big signs of C&D besides mom and pops who've been bringing it in. If those markets are all open up now, probably in the next week or so, we'll start seeing the debris generated by those jobs.
Thank you. That's all for me.
Okay. Has any public comment come in on this item?
No, no public comment.
Okay. If anyone did join us late on the live stream, if you would like to submit a public comment on any of our agenda items, you can do so by emailing comment@svswa.org. Okay, I will entertain a motion to forward to the board and recommend approval.
Lopez moves.
So moved.
Okay,
Second?
we have a first by Chris, second by Gloria. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries, and we'll go to item number 3, which is a resolution establishing the investment policy. And Ray, you're on the
Okay.
mic again.
This one will be quick. This is a routine item. It is recommended that we bring the investment policy forward for approval by the board every year. There are no substantial changes to the policy. It does adhere to the local agency investment guidelines, and the only change in our policy is the increase in the limit of the amount that is allowed to be invested in LAIF. The actual local agency investment guidelines don't have a limit, but there was a limit set by LAIF in what they will allow agencies to invest, which was increased to 75 million in the past year. So our policy reflects that we don't have $75 million to invest, but just to be consistent in the policy, I went ahead and changed that.
Okay, and I see on the report here that LAIF in March is at 1.787%.
Yeah, it came out this morning and they were at 1.4 something, and I don't remember the last decimal. I apologize. 1.42, I think is what it was. But
1.39.
Okay.
Are you looking month to date? There's two different numbers on there.
Just the last date on the list.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm looking at month to date. So yeah.
Yep, and that was going to be my question: is what we're going to see there? You know, no surprise.
It's and it's going to drop because the LAIF is heavily invested in treasuries, which had to cut. So
yeah. Well, I suppose the nice thing I flipped back on the board packet. I'm looking at the investment earnings. And year to date on investment earnings, we're at 74.8%.
Yeah, and we're very likely to make our annual budget on that. Once again, I'm more concerned. This year's budget, we're fine. I have like no concerns of getting through the next 2 months. We were, the first half of the year was we did extremely well revenue wise and tonnage wise, exceeded our budgeted enough to sustain 3-4 months. I am more concerned with next year. And unfortunately, until we open up and we see what, the new normal looks like, and we have a couple of months of that, I cannot accurately predict. I'm hoping it is a little better than we are now, because that will, make our budget close to whole, but I would just cross our fingers and kind of keep an eye on it.
Yeah, okay. Let's do committee discussion. Gloria?
I have none.
Okay, Chris?
None, thank you.
Any public comment on this item?
No public comment.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to forward to the board and recommend approval.
So moved.
So moved.
All those in second by Chris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, and we'll go to item number 4, an update on the Sun Street Transfer Station Relocation Project, and we're going to receive a report from Patrick Matthews.
All right. Well, let's see. We have a slide coming up here in just a second. We just sort of completed this last night, and this is our sort of current first draft look at a schedule and all the activities. So as you know, last month I provided a very brief overview of what the action items would be associated with this project. And so we started with going through each of those and putting in the very more specific tasks that will have to be completed. So we'll start with the first page of this. It's just 2 slides. So we've broken this down into 6 project areas that would all have to be completed to facilitate relocation. So the first one obviously is property acquisition. That's our proposal to Waste Management or to Republic Services. We've talked about that already, so I won't belabor it other than, to facilitate that, obviously the first thing that happens are appraisals, property engineering evaluations, and the same would go with Sun Street, appraisals, and then environmental assessments that would have to be done on Sun Street prior to beginning negotiations or placing the negotiations for Madison Lane properties, or placing the Sun Street properties on the market for sale. So those first 2 items really under both A and B are our first step. So as you can see, we're saying we're 5% complete, and that's primarily because we've gone out and we are securing both appraisers and engineering services at this point. So hopefully by the June meeting, we will be ready to issue contracts and to begin those processes, if not sooner. So that's the first 2 pieces. The next part obviously is the big one. That's SVSWA, completing environmental review. We did find out yesterday something interesting. Republic Services was unknown to us, but Steve and I had a long talk yesterday about it. Republic Services has actually applied to increase the tonnage at Madison Lane from 500 to 900 tons per day. We know Waste Management had tried to do that previously, and there were some issues raised by the LEA and others, and they didn't move forward with that. So we're hopeful they can do that. However, that does not increase their traffic or other things that would still have to be studied under SVSWA to allow for public traffic, to allow for much greater usage of that facility. So this is something Steve assured us that was already in their plan when they acquired the facility to do what they could to increase the tonnage. And so as long as we, continue to collaborate on this, I think, we don't have any concerns at this point. And again, interested and willing to move forward with negotiations. And so we are trying to set up a meeting for next week. They're back in the office now. Both Steve as the regional manager and Luis, who is going to be the new general manager for the Salinas operations. Those 2 gentlemen, as well as Caesar and I, will be sitting down next week and beginning to talk through these schedules and the various aspects of it to get that moving. So the scope of work is being revised. Mandy and I have met with the EIR consultant. We still have them under contract. There's still a substantial amount of money encumbered for that continued work. Some of the work, as you know, has already been completed relative to Madison. So we do have a little bit of a head start. But the scope will be a little bit different now, and we'll have to work through again with Republic, who pays for what components they may want to see in that EIR that are specific to their needs, as well as our own needs. And so with that, having said all that, we're hoping to be, and again, this is all predicated on the date at the top of the screen. And that's assuming a start date the Monday after our May meeting, because we'll be seeking some board direction for several of these items to get started. So, because these dates are all tied together in the formulas that you don't see in the boxes there. So it's all tied to that start date. And so in theory, we could begin the public scoping process as early as the end of the summer. As I said earlier, the project description was already done back in 2018. It just needs to primarily be modified, not rewritten from scratch. Again, that'll take some time, and we'll get a better sense of these timeframes once we've had a chance to sit down with Republic and go through these one at a time. They made it clear to us, as we expected, having worked with companies like this, large companies, the wheels turn a little slower for big corporations because it has to go up and down a much longer chain than we have to. So we'll be fine tuning these numbers over the next couple of months as we have those meetings with Republic Services. And then the real key here is getting to the primary milestones, which would be in towards the end of the fiscal year of next year, and that's to again have property acquisition agreements, have SVSWA done, start those agreements relative to sales or purchase of properties, have the EIR certified by June of next year. And at that point, we begin the next phase, which is financial planning. Once we know the costs, mitigation costs, and other things, those activities would start in the middle of next year after the costs, mitigations, and EIR related costs are all fully known. Next page, please, Ernesto. So the next components obviously are the pieces that get us to completion. The first being the permits and operating agreements and conditions. Again, those things would start as early as spring next year with the intent of having most of the upfront work done, preparation of permit documents, submittal of those documents, and actually receiving approvals from the regulatory agencies, and actually going in and beginning to do some of the mitigation improvements that may be identified in the SVSWA document. So with this schedule, and it is fairly aggressive, and again, it's going to be conditioned on this moving forward expeditiously without any major roadblocks or hurdles that we may run into. And so I always caution everybody, this is a preliminary schedule and subject to things outside of our control that can challenge the schedule. But under this schedule, we could potentially be relocating or starting relocation as early as the spring of 2022. So again, it's a fairly aggressive schedule, but I think again, without major hiccups, we could meet that schedule. The one unknown, and I know we've heard from Judge Phillips on this a little bit in terms of his feelings about being able to work with the community and getting our relocation done before the road's done. The road, if we're waiting for the road, the project will pretty clearly take much longer. And so look into the Rossi extension, and we look at primarily task 1 through 5, creating an MOU to fund it. We'll again be looking to Salinas and the county to be the lead on this, and Salinas, I believe, has already done some work on this from the prior efforts. So there may be a good starting point there. We don't know, and I'm just guessing in terms of how long it would take the county to acquire all the road right-of-ways and or land purchases to support the road extension project. So right now I've got a placeholder of a year because that can be a long process. Maybe less, maybe more, but that's something we'll have to consult with the county RMA about. But the other components, the SVSWA, that would, again, our proposal is to include that in our SVSWA process, so that gets that piece out of the way early on, and we would consult with the county on whether they want to do it that way or follow their own independent process. And then the design engineering and then bid construct, those timeframes are actually out of the county work that was done in 2002 when this roadway extension was first looked at. So those are actually right out of county engineering estimates. So the 360 days for design engineering and 180 days for bid and completion of construction, with looking at the road being in service by spring of 2023. So probably about a year to 3/4 of a year after we have relocated in there. So the challenge will be obviously for John as well as our staff and others involved to work very closely with the Baranda community you saw back under the CEQA discussion, we actually have a specific line item relative to working with that community early on in the process to make sure we can potentially facilitate expanded operations prior to that road being constructed. But by the time we did that, obviously all the agreements, funding, and other things would already be in place, so that would give them a lot of assurance that will happen, even if it doesn't happen concurrent with our operational startup. So that's in a nutshell, that's our first cut at the schedule, and we'll be bringing this back to the board in 2 weeks. We may have a few updates on it or add-ins or edits to the date timeline as we get a deeper consultation with all the stakeholders. Any questions?
All right, we'll go to board discussion first. Gloria, any questions or comments?
No, thank you, Patrick. That was a lot of information. Good job.
Okay, and Chris, how about you? How does this stuff kind of jive with your thoughts related to the county and some of the timelines there?
I think it makes sense. I mean, when something's given priority, then it moves a little faster. So the year, I think, is a good enough window for us to complete that. You know, I think the fact that we've already been in early discussions with the developer about the expectations for that community and their needs in terms of the road development is crucial. So I don't expect too many unknown hurdles. And again, if those, as Patrick laid out, if those commitments are made early, I think that it would be easier for us to show the community that we're serious. And in terms of those legal commitments to completing those infrastructure investments. But yeah, it's not going to be easy, but I do think that it's going to be easier because we've been having those discussions for a while. So thank you, Patrick, for putting all this together to give everybody a realistic timeline of what can be done to continue to serve the needs of the people of Salinas.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So Patrick, the project funding MOU of April 27th. Now, is that time frame because the idea is to each of our respective jurisdictions to allocate that or budget that money for the 2021-2022 fiscal year?
Yeah, just so there's to clarify the date that's on there, that's the start date, approximate start date for that task, not the end date.
Yeah.
So you look at the second one. So that project funding MOU, that basically that date coincides with maybe we'd start developing that MOU a couple of months prior to the EIR certification. So there's a lot of fancy formulas in here that are linking these dates to other dates. So the EIR certification was estimated at June 26th of 21. So we figured we would know all the mitigations. By then we would have gotten public comments on the draft EIR, and we'd be in a better position to begin to develop what that funding agreement would look like and the actual cost by that time. So doesn't mean that we couldn't start these discussions earlier, but there are certain things that have to be done before we have certainty that we can start plugging in real numbers.
Okay. Thank you. Any other board discussion on this item? Okay,
No,
let's go
thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment? Has any public comment come in?
No public comment.
Okay. And this is the recommended committee action is provide input and direction. Patrick, is there any other direction or input you'd like on this item?
No, anything you think I may have missed or additional tasks you want to see in there? That's really all I'm looking for today. And again, I'll plan on bringing this back to the full board in 2 weeks.
Okay. All right. I think we're all set then.
Okay.
Okay, let's go on to item 5. And item 5 is an update on the City of Salinas 1-year notice of intent to withdraw from the joint powers agreement with the Salinas Valley Solid Waste Authority. I'll give a couple of updates here. So this last Friday, we had a meeting. It was with the city manager and mayor of Salinas, Patrick Matthews, myself, and Chris Lopez. That's it. Did I miss anyone? No, that was it, right? Yeah. And so we had a meeting, and the idea is to meet every week and discuss some of the issues, and specifically surrounding Madison Lane and the exit of Sun Street. We were going to schedule a meeting for tomorrow, but there remains some pending issues that our respective general counsels need to consult with each other on, and so they'll be doing that hopefully early to mid next week, and some items that they need to discuss and come into agreement on in order for our group to continue our discussion. I'll just characterize our discussion last week as fruitful, and I'm excited to make some forward progress and to have some discussions directly with the city of Salinas on this. So I absolutely feel optimistic. I think it's probably the most, and not probably, it is the most optimistic I've felt since I've been on the board, related to us leaving Sun Street transfer station there. But that being said, we do need to hash through some legal issues, and then of course, within the context of that timeline that we just saw, there's a whole lot of moving parts to this that we need to progress on. But feeling optimistic, I'll count that as a win at this point in time. So hopefully we'll have our meeting a week from tomorrow, and then we'll have some good reports and updates at our full board meeting. I think for now, that's all I wanted to report on, but Patrick and Chris, you were both in the meeting. Is there anything, I'll go to Chris first. Is there anything that you'd like to add, Chris?
No, I think you summed it up well. I think there are some challenges that remain, but after clear conversation and people sort of explaining their purposes for taking positions that they have, I think we can see that common ground. And I just hope that as we work through this process, we can all stay focused on that common ground, as that's where we're going to find our happy medium that at the end allows us to serve our residents best. And so I am appreciative of the city reaching out to set those meetings up, and I'm hopeful that as long as we can get through these sort of questions on the legal side, we're going to end up in a good place very soon.
Patrick, anything you'd like to add?
What Rob and Chris said.
I'm gonna laugh for a minute, because we can all agree about what we want to do. We want to leave Sun Street and we want to go into Madison Lane. I mean, we're all in agreement with that. It's just how to get from point A to point B, you know, and I won't make any bad lawyer jokes because we have a lawyer on the line, so I won't make any. But no. Anyways, we're all in agreement with that. We'll get there. It may be a tricky road, but I think as long as we all come back to the end goal in mind of what we want and need to do, and balance the needs of all of our respective communities, and we'll get there. So that is my message. Gloria, any discussion, questions, or comments from you?
No, thank you. And yes, and I like, Chris, the common ground, right? I like that word, common ground. So let's move forward. Let's work together. And I'm feeling very optimistic too. Yes. Okay.
Good. All right. Well, thank you. And let's go to public comment. Has any public comment come in on this item?
No public comment.
Okay. And this one is on for provide input and direction. Really the next steps, as previously stated, is we'll have our next meeting scheduled a week from tomorrow, and then we'll provide updates to the full board and to the public at our next board meeting in a couple weeks from now. So that is all on that item. If we could go to the future agenda items, the view ahead calendar, please.
Okay. Well, obviously you have the same items that we saw today. You'll be seeing over the course of May and June our typical contract renewals and extensions for the upcoming fiscal year. So you'll see a number of those on consent. I'm not sure I will do a formal update on Gloria and Iverson Road. I think we got all of it today. It's just the schedule it's on, but Caesar and I'll talk. We'll either provide it through general manager or assistant general manager comments, or provide something short and quick. We have a award for a landfill gas well drilling contract. We're having to expand our gas system as the landfill grows. That's part of our normal CIP process every year. And then the two important items, the relocation project and the notice of withdrawal status report, will also be coming. And that's really it. We're going to hold off some of our recognitions, hopefully till June.
Mhm.
The Wally Wasteland Award is coming.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there is. Take that. Erica just reminded me we haven't adjusted it. We made a decision after the agenda came out. The Wally Waste Not Awards for June are actually going to be moved to May because some of the schools may be out by the time our June meeting rolls around. So we'll be doing our first virtual award at the May meeting, but the other recognitions will be held off till June.
Okay.
Is there any additional items or adjustments or questions on the look ahead schedule? Feel free to let
Hey,
me
on
or
the
Eric know.
on the Wally Waste Not Awards, are we thinking creatively about how we can do that presentation, even if it's as simple as if there's a video that's been done by the school or that we could show? It would be nice to think creatively on this item to showcase, recognize, and appreciate the award recipients as they deserve.
Well, I'm going to turn to our creativity manager, Mandy, to give you her idea.
And you don't have to answer it now, Mandy. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. It's just I just want to make sure we give them the respect and honor that they deserve.
Yeah, no, that's a good suggestion. Estella is actually working on just a brief PowerPoint of the 4 schools that were able to complete the award application. So normally we have about, anywhere between 10 and 12 schools that we would award, but because of COVID and the schools shutting down, we only had 4 that completed the full application this year. So she is going to put together a quick PowerPoint just summarizing everything that they did to recognize them. And then we'll be just sending certificates and their award check in the mail. So we're hoping to have them on the call or on for the meeting so that they will be recognized at the meeting just virtually.
So say again, how many are we actually going to be recognizing?
4 completed
4.
all of the
Okay.
required activities. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to throw an idea out. If you and or Estella want to run with it, fine. If not, no problem. But I'm just thinking about like well, actually, I'll use this as an example. So I have a 10-year-old, and normally we'd be gearing up for the fair next week. And so she's in 5th grade. What the 5th grade teacher did is as an optional kind of extra credit thing is that they used some program, I think it was called Adobe Spark or something like that. And they did a brief they could do a brief little presentation thingy on the fair. And it was pretty cool the way it did it. They could upload it to a website, and then there was some kind of graphics and movement involved. So since it's only 4 schools, I mean, one potential is if we wanted to approach those teachers that were involved and just ask them if they wanted to ask their students if they wanted to put together some sort of a presentation, whatever it happens to be, either using actual pictures of what they did or come up with their own creative thing that's a minute or 2 long. It might be a nice opportunity to give the kids a concrete type of thing that they could do as an assignment. So I'll just throw that out there. If you guys want to run with it, fine. If not, I know that might be too complex. So
No, good
I'll end my-
suggestion. Thank you.
Any comments or questions, Gloria, on this item?
No,
Okay,
no,
and how about
that's
from you, Chris?
wonderful.
I'm good.
Okay, great. Okay, so as previously stated, we have no closed session, so we will go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 4:49. Thank you all for attending.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay.
Stay safe.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Be
you,
safe.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.